Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, for taking the time to be with us. I do have a couple of housekeeping items before we really get going. Today's webinar, just like all of our webinars, it is being recorded, so you will be able to play this back again from our YouTube channel. Later on today, we'll send an email that has a link to the YouTube channel, plus all of our contact information and Jessica's contact information and the slides. So as we're going through, if there's any links or anything you want to see on the slides, you'll get those later. We are in webinar mode, so that means that we can't hear you or see you. But if you have any questions or comments, we would appreciate you putting them into the chat box. And we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can throughout the presentation today. So again, thank you so much for being here with us today. Jessica for hosting us with the Village Centers. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. We're a special needs planning firm. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are financial advisors and also Social Security advisors, National Social Security advisors. So today we're going to be talking about Medicaid waivers, SSI eligibility, and preserving benefits for your special needs child. Before we get going with my topic, Jessica, I would love to hear a little bit about you and the Village Centers.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Michelle. Thank you to CPG for having us today. We're delighted to partner on this. Very briefly, I'm Jessica Morales, the Director of Development for the Village Centers, or sometimes known as the Village Learning Center. We are located in Kingwood, Texas, but really serving a pretty large area of Northeast Houston and surrounding areas. We have a day program, vocational and pre-vocational opportunities and job placement, as well as some residential facilities, both assisted and independent, including small group homes, an assisted living facility, and some independent apartments, all sort of closely located together here in Kingwood. And there's some additional background here on the screen. I won't read it all, but essentially, we're really trying to offer as comprehensive services as we can to reach as many unique needs as we can and to customize sort of the combination of programs and services for the individual so that they're pursuing their own abilities, interests, or goals, depending on, the level and the family's needs as well. When we were founded 20 years ago, there was really nothing in this area at all, and we've expanded over time to really try to meet the needs of the community we're serving and really focused on inclusion and integration into the surrounding community as well through outings and the vocational offerings. So again, really pleased to be here. Feel free to shoot me questions directly in the chat, or my contact information is on the next slide, and you're welcome to send me an email if you're interested in more specifics around our services or have questions about that. So thank you again.
Yeah, and Jessica, if you would go ahead and put your email address in the chat box,
Sure.
Then people can just have it right there while I go through the slides in case they think of anything that they want to ask you. So, all right, well, let's get started. There are about 8 different Texas Medicaid home and community-based waivers. The broad name of the program, HCBS waivers. We're going to talk about the different kinds of waivers today, how you get on the list, how you qualify, what they can be used for, all of this kind of information. So as I said previously, feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat box. I want to let you know that I'll answer as many questions as possible. If it seems like I'm ignoring your question, that just means that I'm about to get to that information. So please be patient with me. Other than that, we should go about an hour today. And we will send a link to these to this recording and these slides in an email after we're all finished. So you should all receive that later today, or possibly at the latest early tomorrow. So these are the 8 waiver programs that are available in Texas right now. And we are going to go through each of them individually. So CLASS, CLASS, the Community Living Assistance and Support Services. DBMD waiver is deaf, blind with multiple disabilities. HCS is the Home and Community-Based Services. Texas Home Living goes by the acronym TXHML. There's MDCP, which is Medically Dependent Children. STAR Plus waiver is also sometimes referred to as the 1115 demonstration waiver. There is YES, the Youth Empowerment Services, and CFC Community First Choice. So as you can see, there's a wide range. Some of them will apply to you and some of them will not. Some of them have wide audiences. For example, CLASS, the very first one on this list, it's basically for anybody who has a disability. So there's a very broad range of people that this waiver can help. So to correspond with that, the waiting list is very long. Now, the one right after that, deaf, blind with multiple disabilities, you have to have a child who is both deaf and blind and has another disability. So that one you can see applies to fewer people. And because it has a narrower range of people that it can help, the waiting list is a lot shorter. So let's talk about each of these different waivers and what they do. So CLASS, like I said, it's very broad. There are over 200 different related conditions that qualify a person for CLASS. It could be cerebral palsy, spina bifida, a whole bunch of different things. The thing is that your condition or disability has to have started before age 22. So this is a list that I suggest everyone get on the waiting list for CLASS. DBMD, that's deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. So this one gives services for children and adults who are deaf and blind and have another disability, or you're losing the eyesight and the hearing and you're on the way to becoming deaf and blind. I have seen some people be turned down if they're not deaf enough or blind enough. But this one has a very short waiting list. So if your child has some sort of problem that is, they might end up deaf and blind in the future, I would say stay on the list. HCS, Home and Community-Based Services. This one gives services and supports to children and adults with intellectual disabilities or related conditions. So it can be intellectual or developmental disabilities who live with their families in their own homes or in a small group home that doesn't have more than 4 people. MDCP, this is another narrow waiting list. MDCP is for children who are medically dependent. They must be medically fragile to be able to get this waiver program. And this is going to help keep your loved one out of a nursing facility and in your own home or wherever, their own home. And it is for 20 and younger. Now, if your child is on MDCP or they are medically fragile and they're on the wait list for MDCP and they're about to be beyond 20 years old, what happens? Well, that's next one, the STAR Plus waiver. STAR Plus is for medically fragile young adults when they turn 21 and up. So if you were currently receiving MDCP, the medically fragile waiver, and you turn 21, then you're transitioned over to the STAR Plus waiver. And again, this helps to make sure that you're in the community and not in a nursing home. The services offered are through an MCO, which stands for a managed care organization. So you cannot get on this list until you're 21 years old, but the list is not very long. Texas Home Living serves children and adults with intellectual disability or other related conditions. So again, a very wide range, a very long wait time for this one. They can be in their own home or family's home, whichever of those. Yes, there's youth empowerment services. This is a program that gives services in the community to children under age 19 if they have a serious mental, emotional problem or some behavioral difficulties. In many counties in Texas right now, there's not a wait for this. So you can go ahead and apply if your child falls into that category. Mental, emotional, and behavioral is for the YES program. And then finally, the last waiver available in Texas is Community First Choice. It's CFC, not CHC. It allows the state to help provide home and community-based services, attendance services, and supports to Medicaid recipients with disabilities. So this helps with activities of daily living and health-related tasks. And they might come on site, come to your home and help teach queuing or help through hands-on assistance, basically helping the individual learn to care for themselves. And again, this one is offered through a managed care organization. And the list for this, for Community First Choice, is typically only a year or less. So it might seem crazy, all of the different waiver programs and who qualifies for the different programs, but this can help you understand what's the point, what services are available when you finally qualify, you finally get to the top of the list for the waiver programs. All waivers can help you pay for things like adaptive aids, financial management services, employment supports and assistance, minor home modifications and respite hours. So if you need to take some time off, mom and dad, you should be able to get hours where a nurse or a care provider can come in and give you some time off. All of the waivers except Mdcp can also provide therapies like music therapy, massage, equine, recreational, whatever different kind of therapies, occupational speech, all of them. They'll help pay for prescriptions and dental care and even nursing. Now, the reason Mdcp does not include those things is because those are already covered by Children's Medicaid. So it's just so that you don't double dip. So all of these things can be covered by waivers. Additionally, things like transportation. If the person needs transportation to work or to therapy, they can help pay for that. Residential services. If your loved one needs to go live in a residential living situation, some of them accept waivers to help you pay for those. Equine therapy, we've already mentioned that. That's horses. That's so cool. Day hab programs and again, nursing. I do see a question came up. What are the contact infos? Yes, we're definitely going to get to how to contact these and get more information about the waivers. So here we go, eligibility. Let's talk about who is eligible for the waiver programs. Most of them are for all ages. There were some age limits that we talked about. For example, Mdcp is 20 and under, Star Plus is 21 and over, and the YES waivers were for 19 and under. For all of them, except for Texas Home Living, you have to be within 300% of the income requirements for SSI, which is $2,523 a month. So if your child is making more than $2,523 a month, they will not be eligible for the waiver programs. It does not look at the parent's income for this. So that's good news. Now, you might have heard other webinars or other information where we have talked about SSI, and we let you know that in order to qualify for SSI, your child cannot have more than $2,000 in their name. So that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother webinar that we've done in the past. And we do get a lot of questions about that. But if you also want your child to qualify for SSI, it's best that they don't have more than $2,000 in their name. Of course, you must also meet the functional eligibility criteria for that waiver. For example, we talked about the Mdcp waiver, that's medically dependent. If your child is not medically dependent or very fragile, they will not qualify for that waiver. The DBMD waiver, deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. If they're not deaf and blind or close to it, they will not qualify for that waiver. One thing to keep in mind is that when you call and you get signed up for the waiver programs, everybody should be able to put their children's names on the list for the program. You do not have to prove that you're eligible until their name comes up and they are offered the waiver. Then they'll call you and say, okay, your name has come to the top of the list and we are ready to offer you these waivers. And sometimes they even, talk to you about what is available to you, what therapies are available, but they're still in the process of checking to see if you're eligible. And sometimes you might get a little bit of false hope. So you really have to be aware of what the eligibility requirements are and make sure that you qualify so that you don't get false hope. And, they don't call you and say, okay, we're ready to give you this waiver. And this is the therapy you can get. And this is the help you can get. And then next week you find out that you don't even qualify because you're not a fit for that waiver program. So just be careful with that. If you do call, I'm going to give you the phone numbers here in a second. If you do call to put your child's name on the waiting list, and they say that they can't put your name on the list because they don't qualify, we think that you should get that person's name, find out who you're talking to, write down what they told you, and ask to speak to a supervisor because they're wrong. The rule is that you don't have to qualify, you don't have to prove that you're eligible until your name comes up on that list. So let's talk about how these waivers are funded and how the paths go to get a waiver. So the first way is through the waiting list. You're going to call these phone numbers, you're going to ask to be put on the waiting list or the interest list for waivers. And these are just first come, first serve. It serves the entire state of Texas. And the wait time can be as long as 17 years. And I know that is ridiculous. But even if you have to wait 17 years or 15 years or 10 years to get your name come up on that waiting list, even in 17 years, these things are going to be very helpful. If your child is 27 and they finally get occupational therapy paid for, well, it's better than nothing at all, right? So definitely don't just ignore these. They are worth it. There's also a path to get waivers through what they call promoting independence. This is to help prevent people from going into an institution, like if they're in a crisis situation, or if somebody is already in an institution of some kind, a nursing home or something like that, and you want them to be able to come out. And we're going to talk about that real quick after we go through how to get on this waiting list. Yes. Okay, so this is what you've all been waiting for. When you receive these slides, this link will be clickable and you'll have these phone numbers, so don't worry. So the first number here in orange, you're going to, whoops, I'm sorry. You're going to call this orange phone number. Everybody on this call should be calling this. This is the wait list for Mdcp, class, and DBMD. That's medically dependent. Class is for pretty much everyone, which is why everyone needs to call this number. And DBMD is for the deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. So even if your loved one isn't deaf, blind, or isn't medically dependent, if they have any disability, you still need to call this number because class might be a fit for you. Okay, so everyone call that phone number, write that down. And like I said, this slide will be in your email box. And the next one is in the dark gray box for HCS, that's Home and Community Services, Texas Home Living, and Community First Choice. These programs are very broad. Everybody should qualify to be on the list for these. So you would want to contact your local intellectual and developmental disability authority, your LIDA, or sometimes people call it LIDA. But you want to call your local authority and ask to be put on the waiting list for the waivers. Now, there are different local authorities all throughout Texas. So you have to find your local authority. In Houston, it's the Harris Center. I know one is called MHMR, one is called Bluebonnet, one is Texoma. You may already be working with your local disability authority on other things, but this is who you also call for the wait lists. And what was Community First Choice again? Community First Choice is another program to help people get help in the community first, right? So they want to give you the choice to have help in the community rather than in a nursing home. And it's for people with disabilities, pretty much any disabilities. So you're going to use this website to search for your local authority and call them and make sure that you're on the waiting list through them. Finally, we have Star Plus in the light gray box. Now you only need this phone number if your child is 20, 21, or going to be 21 soon, and you think that they might need to be on the Star Plus waiting list. Again, this one is a short list. So if they're 3 years away from turning 21, don't worry about it yet. Get them on the Mdcp list for now. But if they're going to turn 21 within the next year, I would call Star Plus, or if they're already 21, call Star Plus and get that wait going, okay? Again, this is going to be emailed to you. Don't panic. So we talked about the other way besides being on the waiting list, the other way to get waivers. And there's two of them. So there's a crisis diversion spot. If you, and we really honestly hope that nobody here is ever going to need this, but if you're in crisis, you can contact your local authority and tell them that you want to be on the HCS crisis diversion waiver. Now they're going to help you with the process, but you do need to stay involved and make sure that you're doing what you need to do as a parent. But you'll call them if you're in crisis. There is a special crisis diversion phone number that your local authority will have listed on their site. Or you can just call their number and tell them, listen, we're in crisis, we need help. I need to be on the crisis diversion waiver. And what do they mean by crisis? So let's say your child is deteriorating to the point where you can no longer take care of them. That's a crisis. If their behavior or emotional needs are so great that they are becoming a danger to themselves or others, or they're running away, that's a crisis. Maybe right now you have husband and wife taking care of a child, and one of the caregivers becomes disabled or passes away. That's a crisis, and you can call and let them know this is not the time to play it cool and say, oh, we've got this, everything is fine. This is the time when you need to really tell them why you need help. And what they're going to be able to do is, instead of waiting 15 years for your spot on the list, they'll move you to the top of the list and get you help as soon as possible. So all you need to do, if you're in a crisis, is call your local authority. And that's what you do, again, to get on the waiting list. You just call those numbers from the previous slide, tell them that you want to be on the waiting list for the waiver programs, and they'll take care of you. The other way, besides being on this long waiting list, the other thing you can do to get a waiver sooner is called a PASRR. That is a pre-admission screening and resident review. So if your loved one is already in a state facility or a nursing home, what they can do is either review them or pre-admission screening. It's on both sides, you know. They'll take a look and they'll see if they can help with a waiver instead of having the person in the nursing home. So that is a way that you can get someone out from a nursing home situation, or and have care within the community instead of within a facility. So that's two options for you if you need those. Otherwise, you just have to call and get your name on the wait list. Looking for questions, looking for questions. Okay, so far so good. So there's a lot of different things that you really need to think about when you're thinking about special needs planning. You know, you have this loved one, maybe they were diagnosed with something years ago, or maybe it's just recent and your head is spinning and you're wondering what to do. Well, it's really important that you work with a special needs planner to help you come up with a plan. How are you going to care for your child for the rest of their life, not just the rest of your life? And you need to think about all the different moving pieces of the puzzle of caring for your child. So a special needs planner, which is what I do, we're a financial advisor who helps you look at the costs of taking care of your child, the benefits that can be provided by the state and the federal government, the income that you will have for the rest of your life, and how that all works together to make sure that your child is taken care of. You will also need to contact a special needs attorney. They can help you with things like your will, a special needs trust, guardianship or powers of attorney, things like that. So we don't work for them and they don't work for us, but we can refer you to special needs attorneys. And the reason that it's so important that it's a special needs planner or a special needs attorney is because you don't want to go to somebody who knows how to do it but has never done it before, or somebody who has maybe done one or two special needs trusts. You don't want to have your neighbor or your brother-in-law or somebody who is a real estate attorney try to help you with things like this, because it can get messed up. And once you get messed up, it would cost even more to reverse the mistakes that have been made. So it's important that you go to an expert from the beginning, you know, just as you wouldn't go to a psychiatrist for dental needs, you wouldn't go to a dentist for a heart problem. You have to go to the right kind of professional to make sure that you get the very best advice. We want you to gather up all of the planning documents that are necessary. Basically, when we look at somebody's financial future and we're doing a financial plan for them, we're going to take everything that they already have in place and examine it. We're going to analyze what you're doing and kind of let you know where you stand. It's kind of like, you know, that junk drawer in the kitchen. I don't know if you have one, but I definitely do. We're going to take that junk drawer and dump it out, shake out everything that's in there, all the old pens and rubber bands and thumbtacks and the measuring tape and the old batteries. We're going to throw away the things that don't work anymore. We're going to tell you, hey, you have 14 flashlights that don't work because they don't have batteries. Maybe we should get rid of some of them and improve them by putting batteries that work in others. Maybe you have something in there that you just don't need anymore. It just doesn't suit you anymore. All of that kind of stuff. And then we're going to reorganize it and put it into easy to read, easy to understand terms. That's what we do when we are doing a financial plan for somebody. So having all your documents in place and ready to go ahead of time is super helpful to do that analysis. Another thing that you want to think about when you're talking about planning for the future of your special needs loved one, you want to put together a letter of intent. Again, we've had entire webinars about this in the past, but a letter of intent is basically instructions that you would leave for somebody who is going to step in and take care of your loved one in the future. So think about this. If something happens to you and somebody needs to step in, what would they need to know to ensure that your family continues to run as smoothly as possible and that the care of your special needs child is continued to the very best of their ability? So when you're writing a letter of intent, this is kind of a love letter to your family and to the person who's going to step in. I want you to start with your letter of intent by writing down, you know, who your family members are, what diagnosis your loved one has, who their doctors have been, what medications are they on, where were they born, what town, you know, what hospital. As much information, factual information as you can. That will start you on the right path. And then you're going to start thinking about the things that they need in their daily life to really flourish. So if your child can't get up in the morning without having, you know, a special snuggle and get those teeth brushed and have a glass of water and then get up and start their day. Or if they're like me, they can't start their day without a cup of coffee with sweet Italian creamer. Or, you know, if they have these certain medications, but here's the schedule for taking those medications. What makes them angry? What makes them happy? What will they absolutely refuse to eat? What do they need in their lives to really keep them going? These are the kinds of things that you want to put in your letter. And I would suggest that you put it on your computer because it's easier to type and then go back and change things as their needs change and as your family evolves. But also have it accessible so that if something does happen to you, this document is not locked up on your computer, hidden away from everybody. So maybe print a version of it. Once you get it looking how you want, you get all the information out there, print a version and keep it safe somewhere where your family knows where to find it. And keep it updated because like I said, year by year, things change. And if you don't update every year, pretty soon it's 10 years from now and everything has changed. So you have to really, you know, update it regularly. And when you're thinking about the future and special needs planning, and even when you're doing your letter of intent, think about your vision of how you hope things are going to look for your special needs child in the future and your entire family for that matter. Are they going to hopefully live independently? Are they going to live in a residential facility or a partial or a group home? Is a day hab program something that would be a good fit for them? Think about really what is going to be involved. Are they going to be able to work and support themselves? Thinking about it ahead of time is going to help so that when these situations begin to arise and when programs begin to come up that can help your student or your child with these things, you kind of know ahead of time what you're going to need. So when we're talking about your child's care in the future, once you're gone, it can be quite daunting because that number can get to be really big. Let's say that your child needs full-time residential care. So you think about how much that costs right now. One thing that we do is an estimate for the future. So right now, your child doesn't need full residential care because you're taking care of them at home. But what happens when you're gone? In 20 or 30 or 40 years, how much is residential care going to cost? And then if your child has to be there while you're gone for 20 or 30 years, overall, how much is that going to cost? So this is a lot of money that we're talking about. And you're probably concerned with how are we going to pay for this? So here are some ways that we can help you pay for that. First of all, you want to make sure that your eligibility for state and federally funded programs is intact. Don't do anything that would mess those up and disqualify your child for benefits. Those are things like making sure that they don't have more than $2,000 in their name. Unfortunately, right now, that's the magic number. $2,000 to receive SSI benefits from the federal government. And if your child has more than $2,000 in their name, they will not qualify. Now, before your child turns 18, the Social Security Administration is looking at the parent's income and assets. So most children do not qualify for SSI benefits before they turn 18. However, when they do turn 18, they look at the child's assets. And again, if that child has more than $2,000 in their name, they won't qualify. So what do? If you want to save money for your child, you can't put it in a savings account with their name on it. What can you do? Well, you can have a special needs trust. They can have money there and it will not count against them. And you can use like life insurance or your current assets, leave those to the special needs trust, and then that can help fund your child's future. They can also have money in an ABLE account, and that will not count against them. An ABLE account is called a 529A. So it's similar to the 529C college savings account, but this is a 529A. So you can put money in this account and it will grow tax-free. It will be invested and grow. You don't have to pay taxes on the earnings. And you can contribute up to $16,000 a year to the ABLE account and additional money if your child is working. So that's pretty cool. It's an additional $12,880. The disability has to have begun before age 26. And again, we have entire webinars related to ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. And if you have questions, I can help answer those. So we do have a question come up about the letter of intent that we just talked about. Do the courts consider your letter of intent when making decisions about estates? Really, it's not meant for that. It is meant for individuals who come in to help your families. Really, you need to have a will, and you need to have a lawyer, have an attorney help you prepare your will. And you also need to make sure that your any accounts that you have that would pass on to your heirs, like life insurance or your bank accounts or anything that has a beneficiary listed, it needs to be set up to where, for example, your life insurance is not left to your child, Evan Morris. That's my child's name. I'll use him as an example. You don't want your life insurance to be left to your child, Evan Morris. You want your life insurance to be left to the Special Needs Trust for the benefit of your child, Evan Morris. Because if they come into money, then they lose their benefits. And it's something that you might want to consider for neurotypical children as well, because any child at the age of 18 coming into a large amount of money might be trouble. Can every child handle getting your life insurance benefit when they turn 18? I don't know. I mean, Evan, my kid is 18 right now, and he's very, very smart, just like all of your children are, but he's also very, very into classic cars. So if I passed away right now and he got a large inheritance because of my life insurance, do I know that he would set up everything properly for his future to be funded? He might. Do I know that he might also invest in a couple of really awesome classic cars? Well, he might do that too. So, think about leaving large sums of money to children, and how that's going to happen if you were to pass away. So a trust fund can be for special needs children or not. Okay, we answered your question there. What is the latest age at which an individual over age 18 can apply for SSI benefits? You can apply for your SSI benefits at any time. So if you're already past age 18, maybe your child is already 26 or 32 or 42 for that matter, and they didn't know, or you didn't know about SSI benefits, you can still apply. You want to get in touch with your local Social Security office. You can look that up online. And you want to call them and apply for SSI benefits. If they have a job, that will reduce the amount of their benefit according to how much they're making, or if they have any other sources of income, that could affect their benefits. But generally, you can call at any age and get those set up. A few more things that should be on your radar, and this is going to answer some questions, but also raise some other questions. So hang tight as we go through these things. We're at about 12:42, so I'll try to make it quick and make sure we have time to get through everything. We talked about developing a comprehensive special needs care plan. Who's going to take care of them and how is that going to be paid for once you're gone? Estimating those future care costs for different kinds of care is very important. Making sure that you are on the list for those Texas waivers so that they can get those waivers in place to help with things like medications or therapies or transportation, all the things we've already talked about. SSI and SSDI, these are two different animals. You need to understand the difference between which is which, and when you can apply for these things, how to apply, what paperwork they're going to need. So SSI, your child will probably qualify for when they turn 18, as long as they don't have more than $2,000 in their name. Now, SSDI comes along later when you or your spouse or your child's parent or step parent retires or passes away. Then they'll be able to draw Social Security from a parent's record, and that's different. You can't get both, you just get whichever one is the highest, okay? And we can help you untangle any confusion there. ABLE accounts, you can have money in an ABLE account for your child and it will not affect their benefits, but you don't want to, you can't put more than $16,000 each year, and you don't want to have more than $100,000 total, or else they will reduce your benefits. We can help you set up an ABLE account. There are over 40 different ABLE accounts all throughout the country. You can use any one of them. You can set one up that we can help you set up. I called the number for eligibility for class, and they asked for my child's social security number right away. For them, they see a social security number as a tracking number, basically making sure that your child is, tracked appropriately, I guess. But really, they use it as identification. I wouldn't worry too much about giving them your child's social security number, so that it will be easier to pull them up in the future and find their record, things of that nature. So I wouldn't see that as a big concern. Beneficiary designations. We talked about that a little bit, that you don't want to list your child as a beneficiary on anything, really. And that could even include minor children who don't have any disabilities. Let's see what else is coming through. When eligible for SSI, usually individuals get Medicaid as well. That's true. You usually get Medicaid at the same time that you get SSI. If a child over 18 already has health insurance through their parents, great, up to age 26. How does Medicaid affect the current health insurance in place? So like if you already have Blue Cross Blue Shield, yes, that would be your primary, and Medicaid would be your secondary insurance. So you might not want to use Medicaid in-network doctors. You can use your own doctors who are in network, but you can use Medicaid for other things like prescriptions or co-pays or things like that. We do have a letter of intent template. If you contact our office, we'd be happy to send that over to you. But again, you don't necessarily need to have a template. Just start writing from your heart and it will all come out, I promise. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? The special needs trust. You can have money in an ABLE account for your child. You could also have money in a special needs trust. And again, this is for larger amounts of money. You don't necessarily need to open one right away unless you have a large amount of money to put in it. You could just say that a special needs trust is going to be formed upon your death. You could have that in your will, and then your life insurance will go into that. If you have maybe a family member, maybe grandma or grandpa wants to leave some money to your child and it's a large amount of money, in that case, you would want to open a special needs trust right now to be able to put that money somewhere for your child. Something that you want to keep in mind if you are in a divorce situation. If child support is going to continue beyond your child's age 18, which can happen when there are special needs involved, you want to make sure that that child support payment goes into a first party trust for your child. And this is different from the third party special needs trust, but the first party trust will make sure that the Social Security Administration doesn't count that as income for your kid because they can't get to it, but it will be there for them in the future and in case they need it. Okay. If you think that you might need a residential living facility in the future or a group home or something like the village centers, you might want to start touring those early and checking out who they accept and what kind of care they offer, and what is available to you and your family, and find out if they take waivers or if it's a self-pay situation only, and then what kind of waiting lists they have, because we would hate for you to find the perfect living situation for your child and then find out later that there's a 5 to 10 year waiting list for that living arrangement and you can't move on with your plans. So the more you know about residential facilities, the more you research those ahead of time, the better. If you're considering guardianship or alternatives to guardianship, like supported decision-making, or maybe just a healthcare power of attorney, things like that, you can start looking into those things when you are within 6 months of your child's 18th birthday. That will require the help of an attorney. And the law requires that you go with the least restrictive option. Guardianship is pretty restrictive. You're taking away their right to drive and their right to vote, their right to decide things for themselves, really. And if that's necessary, that's what you should do. But if a lower amount of help is going to be just as good, that's what the state wants you to go with. We do have a list of attorneys that are focused on special needs that can help you with guardianship or your will, your special needs trust, your power of attorney, all of those things. We have lists of attorneys all throughout the state of Texas, and there are even some programs offered through partners like the ARC of Texas or the Parent to Parent Network that can help with lower cost guardianship options. And of course, we help people with that every day. There's also a lot of options. What happens when your child finishes high school and they might stay in the 18 plus program at the school, but maybe that's done at age 22, and then what? We have a lot of options, and that you want that to be on your radar too, of what programs are out there, what what colleges offer special programs for kids with disabilities. These are all things that you want to keep in mind as your child is growing up and thinking about on your radar, on your special needs planning radar, like the slide says. So this is our team at Consolidated Planning Group. We are a small independent firm based in Sugar Land, just outside of Houston. We can work all throughout Texas because all of the meetings that we do are virtual on Zoom. We are National Social Security advisors and members of the Academy of Special Needs Planners. We are also members of the $1 Million Roundtable, which just tells you that we have experience and we know what we're doing, and we are trusted by the people who work with us. When you call us, you don't have to wait on hold for half an hour for someone to answer the phone, because you're literally calling my cell phone or calling the office where we have staff waiting to help, or at least set an appointment so you can talk to one of us and get your questions answered. We do free consultations for everybody. Your first consultation is always free, and you would meet with either Allison, myself, or my husband, Andy, because our firm is 2 husband and wife teams are the financial planners. So the way this works is you can schedule your own free consultation by using the QR code here, or you can call or email the office. Any of those options work. If QR codes aren't your thing, that's fine. If you do use the QR code, it will take you straight to our calendar, and you can just schedule yourself for an appointment. Our appointments usually last about half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions you have. We want to learn about you and your family and your situation, your loved one and their special needs, and what questions you have, what keeps you up at night. So we chat about that for a while. And then we're going to tell you about us and our company and how we work and the different planning options that we can offer. And then from there, we'll see if we're a good fit to work together, or if you just wanted your questions answered, or if you just need us to send you something, or if you want to move forward with one of our planning options. That's how we work. Before we meet, we ask for you to fill out a short questionnaire. It shouldn't take really more than 5 to 10 minutes, asking about, who you are, so that we don't have to ask that information while we're on our Zoom call. We can use that call for more important things like getting your questions answered. Also, we put out a ton of great content that is always free. Our Facebook page is at Consolidated Planning. On there, we post articles that are helpful. We advertise our upcoming webinars. And then on our YouTube channel, Consolidated Planning Group, we post all of our webinars once they're done. They're always recorded and sent over to our YouTube channel. So if you miss one, you can watch and find out that information. Today's webinar will be there. Also, like I said, anyone who registered for today's webinar will get an email that has these slides, my contact information, Jessica's contact information at the Village Centers, plus a link to schedule an appointment with us and a link to go watch our videos on YouTube. So I am going to put Jessica's info back up for a moment. And thank you again, Jessica, for having us and for sharing us with your families. I hope that we've been helpful today. I know that we've answered some questions and raised some other questions. So whatever questions you have, feel free to contact us and set up a chat. There's no obligation and no fee to have a talk with us. And while we have the last couple seconds here, I'll leave the chat box up with any any questions that come through, I'll get those answered. But again, I just really want to thank everybody for being here today, taking the time to spend with us. Contact Jessica if you have questions about the village centers. Contact me if you have questions about other topics or other financial planning issues for special needs kids. And we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you, everybody, for being here. With that,
Thank you.
I will stop our recording and end my share. So thanks, everybody, for being here, and let us know how we can help. All right, bye.
Bye.